And we went from one century to another and all of that. No major decisions affecting the future of our people were made outside of the black church.
Bishop Sheard?
Yes. Well, it's simply in that, and as you were talking, Ms. Gaddis, it was very, I began to reflect that, a lot of, I'm not trying to over-spiritualize, but a lot of the preachers from way back in the day, they were not literate, but God revealed to them while they were teaching the Bible how to read and how to pronounce words. And so that was really our learning station. And then and that's why I always applaud pastors who are such as Bishop Winan, who has done an excellent job at trying to further this thing of education. Our problem with our whole system is that for so long now, here recently, and then when I say recently, I mean in the recent years, is that we've tried to negate and degrade those persons who were in ministry, and we've tried to, and we've chipped away at them to such an extent until we are guilty of causing the community to not have the confidence that they once had in the black church, and in particularly the leadership. Now, that's not to say that some of them didn't made the wrong decisions and what have you, because some of them did, but there are some who maintain and hew to the line and trying to talk about morality, education. Maybe my aspect is a little different because I am a former educator, but I make much of our children getting A's and B's. I make much of that. I mean, I go in my pocket right there when they bring me their report card and give them money and stuff like that. So that education is important. My children grew up in my house, and they knew that no one was grown until you had at least a bachelor's degree. I told them, I don't care if you're 39 years old. You're just a 39-year-old kid. You got to have a bachelor's degree. And I preach that. And one of the strangest things, and I certainly don't want to monopolize your time, but one of the strangest things happened to me, Pastor and Ms. Gaddis, not too long ago. I was sitting in the social hall of my church, and I started watching some of the young people as they were interacting with each other. And I looked at them and I said, wow. I said, these kids done went away to college and come back to church. These kids, and I started counting, and I think I counted in the social hall at that particular time upwards of 20-something young adults. And I said, and I stopped and I said, I got to put these millennials in leadership. And so, of course, my church has taken a shift because I want them to be proof positive of what I've been teaching all the time.
Yes.
And so we've made a major shift in our leadership. And of course, I've had some pushback, but you expect that. But I think it's going great. They're doing a phenomenal job.
That's it. Bishop Sheard, I can say the same thing. I had a young person that grew up in our church, and he went away to school, and he came back, and he just set up a meeting with me. And while talking to him, he was saying, how can I get involved with my church? And we started a whole thing called Generation Next, and we moved them into leadership, and things are happening because it is true. Now, what you said as it relates to, I think it all goes together in that you preached it in your home.
Yes, sir.
And one of his children, Mildred, graduated from the Winans Academy of Performing Arts. You knew that was coming, so he was a bright parent here. And so when you start, they sort of go together. That home and that education is absolutely right. Goldie grew up in a home where education was not an option, was it?
It was not an option. In fact, part of the value of the way that I was reared in my home was that education, besides being a necessity, it was also a profession. It was also part of our community commitment. So it was not an individual experience. It was a collective experience. If one of us was doing a science fair project on something, that meant that the entire family would discuss this science fair project so that we all understood that learning is an experience that you commit yourself to in all ways in your life. That it's not something that you reserve when you get to your school building and then you can turn off when you leave. You know,
Gotcha.
Getting all A's on your report card in my home, ironically enough, didn't get you any merit because that was the expectation. So you get all A's, great. The question was, how'd you get A's? What's your work ethic like? What's your discipline like? Do you understand the content in the classes, and that's why you got all A's? Or you crammed before every test, and that's how you got all A's? So
I remember that.
Shaped and built character in that process of learning. And so my siblings and I, you know, we're all advocates of education, but we're also passionate learners of life. And it sounds like that's so much of what we're talking about. How do we cultivate generations that love and are eager to learn?
Here's what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm struggling with. Pastor, you know where I come from. My grandmother had a 6th grade education. My mother had an 8th grade education. And most of the folk around me did not have degrees. However, we had some teachers, some people working in the post office and all of that. But all of the adults we knew wanted us to become educated. They wanted us to go to college. Didn't have any money, but we were going. You either going to the military or you were going to college. If you met a drunk on the corner of the street, you're walking home from school, the first thing he asked you, boy, you getting your lesson. I mean, they were passionate and they were desperate, and they kept beating it like a sledgehammer, how important it was, although they didn't have it. They did all that they could to ensure that we did, and literally brainwashed us into believing that was, you know, you're not going to make it in America without an education. Well, we have a lot of parents who don't have very much education, but who don't have that commitment, who've lost their way. Who've lost their way for one reason or another.
Because what superseded or excelled education was money.
Exactly.
Okay. Quick story, and I'll let you have it, Bishop Shear. B.B. King, world famous. And yet, my superintendent had an opportunity to be with him. Of course, I knew B.B. King. And he said the one thing he regretted is that he didn't finish school. That was from Indianola, Mississippi. And out of all of the fame and all of the thing, and that's the reason our Superintendent Hayward was able to speak with him, because he said he was from the Marvin L. Winans Academy, and that got his attention. He went in. He said the one thing I wish I had done was finished at least high school. So, but you have children now that say school isn't important. I just got to go make the money. And that's where the problem is. Instead of education being a signal of success, money is the signal. What kind of car you drive. And this another true story. That I had a friend of mine. She was general manager over a Honda. It's not there anymore. On 8 Mile in Ferndale. And she told me, she said, Pastor Winans, I had gangbangers coming here, and it cost X amount of dollars. This man brought her a bag, this young boy brought her a bag of money, and she counted it. And when she was counting it, she looked up at him, and he looked at her and, thought something was wrong, said, what, that's not enough? And at that point, she knew he didn't know how to count. So he's buying the car cash, but doesn't even know if he's being ripped off.
Bishop, I wonder if that whole, because now the our government became a little bit more sophisticated, whereas, you got to fill out these forms if you have more than $10,000 in cash, or you can't deposit $10,000 in the bank, all this kind of stuff. And and I know Bishop Winan and I are about the same age, but I recall
young men, both young men.
But I recall there was a period that I can remember where, while I was going to school, I will never forget, I had a conversation with one of my relatives, and I was going to school to be, I was at Wayne